So for the second part of the methods for investigating and explaining, we're going to pick up right where we left off, and I'm just going to recap briefly. Just remember that in the body of the paper that what you're doing is you're presenting all the details associated with your thesis statement that you've presented in your introduction. In the body, you're going to present pieces of information, facts, statistics, data, expert opinion, that type of thing, that provides the who, the what, the why, the when, the where, and the how associated with your topic and your thesis statement. Remember that you're taking a journalistic approach. You're not to present any direct personal opinion whatsoever. You're to come across as a journalist that would be unbiased, fair, and balanced. And what that means is not presenting any personal opinion whatsoever. I discussed briefly in the last lecture that quite often on news shows you will have these talking heads, these commentators that come on to these news shows and provide their personal opinion. Don't confuse that with a journalistic stance. They're not the same thing. A journalist reports the facts and the facts only as they know them, and a commentator provides you with their personal opinion. Now, sometimes those commentators seem to try to blur the difference between journalism and editorial, but understand that what they're doing is they're only giving you their personal opinion. Now, it's very, very important also to keep in mind that each of the ideas that you present in the body of your paper must be connected to the thesis in some way. And so, as the writer, what you want to do is, as you present each piece of information, be sure that just briefly you explain to your reader how each of those ideas is connected to that thesis statement that you presented in your intro. Think of each of the examples that you provide in the body of your paper as supporting ideas. That's what they are. Each of those ideas should support the thesis in some way. But for each of those supporting ideas, you're going to have evidence. Again, that's facts, data, statistics, examples, illustrations, things of this nature. Again, that answer the who, the what, the how, the when, and the where. This information, however, must be reliable. You only want to use reliable sources so that your reader will in turn trust you. Remember, you want to keep your audience in mind, so use a source that your audience is going to trust. Therefore, do not use sources from the World Wide Web whatsoever. No websites, no Wikipedia, nothing like that. It's not trustworthy. Anyone with a website can say anything that they want to. Anyone with a blog can say anything that they want to. No one's going behind these people and fact-checking the things that they're saying, so therefore it does not mean that there is any reasonable reason why we should trust these individuals and what they say. However, information from a library or a library database can be trusted. A lot of these things are fact-checked. There are multiple ways this happens, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the MLA section or the MLA lecture. But just understand, you must use information from either our library, or you can use it from any other library as well. As a matter of fact, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library is not too far from campus. It's at the corner of 6th and College. They might have a lot of sources on your topic as well that our library does not have access to, so you might want to check them out also. You can actually search their webpage before you walk over or go into Uptown to search their stacks and their databases, so check that out before you go. As long as you have a Johnson & Wales ID, though, they will give you a library card. I think you also need your driver's license. Now, remember that what you're doing is you're taking this information from other sources and you're presenting it to present your thesis. Now, what you're going to have to do as the writer is also make connections between these pieces of information that you're showing us. You can't just say Smith states that, Jones states that, Stevens argues, Kendall points out that, the end. You actually have to say something in your research paper. Your voice needs to be there, but you're going to present a voice that is neutral and unbiased, so you're not going to argue. And we'll talk more in the MLA lecture about how you can do this. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to use something called qualifiers to do it. But the first time that you use a source in your paper, you must introduce it. Now, I have an example down at the bottom of this slide here For instance, we have in her article, Sex Trafficking of Women in the United States, International and Domestic Trends, Janice Raymond explains that. That is how you introduce a source. You provide the title of the work, the author's name. You can also include, if you want, the title of the publication. You can include credentials that this person might have as well. But the first time you use the source, you must introduce it by giving at least two of those things. And of course, you would end that sentence with the piece of information that you want to show. And then you're going to have to cite it. Now, we'll go into more specific MLA rules in the MLA lectures, but understand clearly that anytime you are either directly quoting or paraphrasing information from a source, you have to always, always, always cite it. Even when you're taking that information and putting it into your own words, it's still not your idea. The idea belongs to the source, so that must be cited. So when you're providing this evidence in your paper, you're going to have to do things like introduce sources, provide author tags, and use MLA in-text citations, and include a works cited page. Now, an author tag is something like down at the bottom there when I have Raymond explains that. She points out, she knows. These are called author tags. They're also referred to as signal phrases. So, these are very important tools that you're going to have to use in the body of your paper when you're presenting your information. And of course, again, those MLA citations are extremely important. And we'll go into more detail about the rules involving those when we get to the next MLA lectures. So what are some specific things that you need to show in the body of your paper? With these pieces of information that you're providing, this evidence, you want to be sure that you're discussing causes and effects. So let's say that you're doing that sex trafficking topic. Well, first of all, what is the problem? What's caused this problem? What kinds of things are causing this problem? And understand it's never going to be probably just one thing. It'll probably be a combination of things. The world's very complicated, and there are going to be a lot of complicated things that are causing these issues. So, don't just go to one source and find something and think you have the right answer. The world's not black and white like that. There's lots of shades of gray. So, don't go into this assignment either thinking you possess the truth or the absolute truth regarding your topic. You don't. What you want to do is you want to go to these academic sources and locate sources that are going to give us probabilities of truth. And you're going to present to your reader these probabilities of truth based on what these individuals have said. So you're going to look at what causes the problem, and then you want to look at what effects this problem might have. How has this problem of sex trafficking affected, law enforcement? How has it affected the women? How has it affected, public services? How has, you can just go on and on and on and on and on for all these ways that it might have affected other things. And so you want to present some of these ideas to your readers. And of course, you don't want to rely too much on one source either. And also understand that no more than 20% of your paper can be direct quotes. So a lot of the information you provide to us is going to have to be paraphrased. And you're going to have to provide some explanation in your own voice. So just be sure that you're providing important and relevant examples to your audience. And don't forget, again, like I mentioned before, the content of the body must relate back to your thesis. So a good way to look at this would be to make sure that each paragraph that you present is related back to your thesis in some way. And just it might be a good idea just to stop at the end of each paragraph or somewhere in that paragraph and be sure you're just providing a brief explanation of what that connection is. So what do you do in the conclusion of your essay? The conclusion is fairly simple. In the conclusion, you just summarize the main points that you've presented in the body of your paper, and you restate the thesis that you also presented in the introduction. And just like in the introduction, you're going to have to give us so what. So, for instance, back to the sex trafficking topic again. So what? Sex trafficking is a problem in the United States and around the world. Why should your reader care about that? That's what you want to explain to them with that so what question. In other words, what you're trying to do is show them how this topic is relevant to them in their lives when they may think it's not at all. A very, very important point to keep in mind is that when your reader reads the intro and conclusion together, those two things should form one idea. That's because in your intro, essentially what you're doing is pretty much saying, hey reader, this is what I'm going to show you. You show them the main points of what you're presenting in the body, and in the conclusion, you're pretty much just saying, hey reader, just in case you forgot, this is what I just showed you. So the intro and conclusion must form one idea together, and then you can also include the title on that and say the title, the intro, and conclusion should form one idea. And also, don't forget, any ideas that are not your own, those that come from a source, must be cited in text, and you also must include a works cited page. Now, this particular assignment, you'll notice in the instruction it calls for a specific number of pages. That does not include that works cited page. So whether your assignment calls for 5 to 7 pages or 8 to 10 or whatever, that's 5 to 7 plus a works cited page, or 8 to 10 plus a works cited page. So just keep that in mind.